Okay, let's start. So as you guys know, I'm Sujude. I'm a VC associate at Lux and also a design master student at Stanford. Grew up in Ohio, Palestinian American, came out to the West Coast to do my undergraduate at UC Berkeley, where I started getting into tech, data science, which led me into venture and led me into wanting to invest more in young people. And a lot of how media is consumed right now is through social media, and young people are also changing social media. So that's what this panel is about. Let's start with 2-minute intros or so with all the panelists. Imran, do you want to start?
Yeah, let's go. Bismillah. All right, so what's going on, guys? My name is Imran. I'm an ex-Bay Area software engineer. I used to work for a company called Palo Alto Networks. I blew up on TikTok and left to go help startups and other brands do the same. And I started my own company called Fruits of Jannah, which is a Gen Z Muslim clothing brand. And it's also my test platform for e-commerce marketing. And everything I learned from there, I bring to clients and vice versa. So, yeah.
I go next.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lena. I am currently sorry, the alarm is really loud, but I'm currently a content creator on all platforms at Pullingravity. I focus on lifestyle, beauty, and fashion content. I was previously also in a tech position as well, but I decided to quit and pursue creating full-time, and I also have my own website at pullingravity.com, so you can also check that out. I do write blog posts, but I mostly create on TikTok.
Abdellatif? Oh. You're good now. Okay. Or not. Okay. When he pops, oh.
Hey everyone. No, I just wanted to tell Abdellatif that hopping on phone is still in beta, so I would recommend him to use.
Yeah. So he's on a cruise on the Nile River right now. So.
Awesome. Okay, no worries. But I'll let you, Sujude, say that to him when he's on.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, okay, let's start off with our first question when he comes back in. But what do you think is the best platform to be on right now, and what is the best way to use it? An easy first question. Imran?
Go ahead. I mean, I still think the most underpriced platform right now is still TikTok. They just rolled out their ad platform, a bunch of new e-commerce integrations. I went through, their onboarding process with, uploading, setting up the TikTok pixel and setting up advertisements. And it's easy. You get a lot of traffic for free. And I just think it's like the best bang for buck right now in the social media space. I'd say a close second would be anything audio. So like Clubhouse is big now. Twitter Spaces I can see getting a lot bigger. And probably the third thing I would say would be anything in the gaming space. So Twitch is still early. If you guys have been following the news, a lot of big companies have been kind of chasing after the gaming industry. Like Discord had a huge acquisition announced yesterday. So I think there's like a lot of potential there. And I still think that there's not as many gaming content creators as there are in other niches. So I still think that it's still like a pretty good space to be at.
I would definitely second you, Imran. TikTok is the best platform to be on right now, especially if you're trying to build a business. You definitely get the most ROI out of TikTok. So many people are on TikTok, and for some reason too, like you just get so much more engagement. I'm sure you know all about that on the back end. But for me personally, my personal experience has been a video that I post on TikTok definitely does way better than if I'm posting it on Instagram or Twitter. I think with TikTok, it's a lot easier because you can use tools in the app to just, create short videos, figure out your niche, use trending sounds, and the trending sounds bump up your video and push you into the algorithm, which is something that Instagram may not have right now. Not too sure, maybe Reels has it, but it's definitely a lot easier to create on TikTok. I also do think too, if you are going to create a TikTok, it's really important to figure out what your niche is, and also still somehow push that in to where you're still creating content that is trendy as well. So figuring out what your niche is, and also you know, push that into the creative side of TikTok.
Amazing. So from that, what do you guys think are the macro trends you saw in 2020 that you expect to stay in all these platforms, TikTok, Instagram, going forward? I know Imran touched on audio too, so let's talk about that as well.
Yeah, I just think voice is going to be huge, right? Because one is like, as like the world is opening back up, the cool thing about like platforms that are voice first is that they actually like save you a lot of time, right? So you don't need to be sitting down looking at your phone with video. With audio, it's just like very passive. And I know we saw like a huge podcast boom like before the pandemic, and I think that's going to come back in full force as well too. I think people are slowly getting burnt out from just constantly watching video when they're on the go. Audio is like a nice replacement for music. So whether that manifests itself in Clubhouse or in a podcast or Twitter Spaces or whatever new platform comes out, I think that's the way forward, because AirPods have only been out for a couple years now, and companies are only now starting to build platforms around it, right? You could think of Clubhouse as like the AirPod first social media, right? And you know, same thing with like Twitter Spaces. And so I think as more people kind of get acclimated to this new platform of like, you know, AirPods, that in and of itself, right? Like the hands-freeness of everything, I think we're going to start seeing like a lot more bigger apps come out, and people just getting used to that being the medium by which they communicate.
Yeah, I think for me, I would say live streaming, like you said earlier too, you know, Twitch and Discord, all of those apps as well. I think live streaming is huge, especially on TikTok right now too. You know, if you have a video that's doing really well and you hop on live stream, you're getting a lot more attention, because the people who are just following you, or the people who recently just saw your video, are on your page. So you have that opportunity to hop on and talk about what it is you want to talk about with them and go a little bit more in detail. It's also a lot more personal, I think, because they have the opportunity to ask you questions in the live stream, and you're right in front of them, even though, you know, they're not in front of you, but you're in front of them. And so you have that opportunity to really speak on the topic and really expand on it as well. And it does give your audience that special one-on-one interaction that they're really looking for. At the end of the day, they're looking for authenticity, and they want to know more information, and they want value out of the content that you're creating. So that one-on-one interaction is really important.
Amazing. So you're a master at that on your own platforms, both of you guys, creating this authentic feel, and both of you guys have such large followings. What are effective methods that you guys have learned on growing your channels and growing your communities? And then from that, how do you see monetization changing in the next year or so?
Go first on this one.
I think consistency is the best method, to be quite honest. You know, the best growth that I've ever had is because of consistency. You know, posting every single day. It doesn't have to be on every platform, but whatever platform, you know, you decide to call home or is like your main platform, post consistently on that platform. It's so important, because you want people to know, you want your audience to know that you're there and you're going to be providing them value with every piece of content that you're putting out, and that it's going to be consistent. So you're not going to disappear. You're still going to be there and answer questions. That's another thing too, is listening to your audience and then creating content from there. I personally don't have like a business plan or a strategy. I think it's all about my audience and what they ask me, and then that's what I create content off of. So yeah, I think it's all about consistency. It's all about paying attention to your analytics and your engagements, and what your audience is looking for and how you can provide value.
add to that, I would say one thing that I see a lot of brands making the mistake of is not like contextualizing the content for the platform that it's on, right? So for example, I've seen people take TikToks and just post them on Instagram story, right? Like, yeah, that works. You might get some traffic, but it's not going to be nearly as effective as like creating content that's native to each platform. And it's hard. It's hard to do that. And it's hard to do that at scale. But that's where, you know, getting good at editing video yourself or getting good at just kind of rewiring your brain to think in 140 characters. That all those things really stack up and help you kind of gain an edge on social. Just being quick with like your ability to execute, get ideas out, edit video, and just make sure it feels like it's for the platform, right? So especially with like TikTok advertisements, they have this, they have like a slogan inside of TikTok's ad department. It's like, the slogan is like, make TikToks, not ads. And I think that's kind of like where I see the future of all these things going, right? Like every company needs to also be a media company or kind of have a media wing to it. Because, you know, I feel like influencer marketing is not going to be as effective as it was in the past. And people are more invested in companies and brands than ever before. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Awesome. That leads into my next few questions. Do you want to do a quick intro?
Yeah, hey guys. Sorry, Hopin was crashing on my phone and I wasn't able to unmute myself. I joined through my wife's phone, but I can't turn on the video for some reason. Hopefully it works. Hey everyone, my name is Abdellatif. I am the co-founder of Tarteel. It's an AI startup that uses machine learning to listen to people's recitation of the Quran and corrects their mistake. So you can imagine people downloading the app, starting to recite, and knowing the mistakes they made, similar to what a Quran teacher does. Before that, I was a software engineer at Twitter and NASA. Excited to be on this panel.
Okay, so piggybacking off of what Imran and Lena just said, so what do you think tech companies or emerging startups can do to get an edge on social media that you don't really see yet?
The question?
What can tech companies and startups do differently to get an edge on social media, grow their following, grow communities that you guys, I know Imran mentioned having native ads to different social media types, but is there anything else that comes to mind?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it starts all off with understanding your users and understanding where your users are. Because one type of users might be on one platform and not the other. For example, if we are targeting users in Egypt, the vast majority of people in Egypt are not on Twitter. So being very active on Twitter and trying to engage with users on Twitter is not the best idea. So step number one is identify where your users are. The second thing is trying to understand what you're trying to get out of your social media engagement, because not all following necessarily results in conversion and converts into users like being more active and using the product. So you need to set specific metrics into what you're trying to do. For Tarteel, we have two main metrics. One is engagement, aka people who are already aware of Tarteel, when they see Tarteel on social media, they're going to join the app and come back to the app and re-engage. And two is expanding to new users. And we're trying to be very specific with who these users are and how to target them.
Feel free to jump in, Lena and Imran, if you have any other tips or tricks.
Yeah, I would add one thing that like I learned from like the e-commerce world that I think translates across all industries is that your ideal customer needs to have seen your brand or your company or your product multiple times before making that commitment. Especially nowadays, like where it's really easy to build a product, it's really easy to start a company to where there's, you know, a lot of, you know, let's just say there's like a lot of con artists out there that are, you know, selling, even in the software industry, there are people selling white label software. There are, you know, people, you know, selling apps that don't exist, things like that. So your customers need to see your brand, your clothes, your software, everything multiple times before they make a purchase, right? And so just making sure that you get it in front of them as many times as possible is super important, because the first time they see it, they're not going to download your app. The second time they see it, they're not going to download your app. but maybe the 5th, 6th, 7th, or 8th time they see it, they'll finally go to your website, download the app, or make a purchase or something like that. So just making sure you're just always constantly, like Lena said, being very consistent, just consistently putting your brand out there, consistently just being in front of the eyes of your ideal customers is going to help everything long term.
Yeah, and just to touch up on that too, I think Abdellatif touched up on it. Knowing who your audience is really, really important, because your audience may not be on TikTok. They may be on Twitter or Instagram, and then really just adjusting your content from there, because every platform is different, completely different. You have different strategies for each platform, and really knowing who your audience is so important. Like, what I do is I sit down and I sketch out this girl and I look for her qualities, and what she looks like, what she eats, what she's doing every day, what clothes she wears, just everything. That is really, really important, because that's really the person that you're going to be attracting. And that person is going to be sending your content to their friends, and etc. And so I think that strategy is really important. Sorry for the fire alarm.
And to kind of wrap up with this one last question, what are some principles you all have of social media that you believe will never change and that the audience should come away with, specifically if they're starting a company utilizing social media?
I would say one thing that never changes is just being like authentic, right? People can really sense inauthenticity. I'm not saying you have to go out there and expose all of your business secrets or your competitive advantage, but just being authentic to who you are as a person, who you guys are as a company, and just making sure that you do your best to portray that. Because, part of building out your ideal customers or your ideal customer profiles or your target audience is understanding that in order to say yes to those people, you're going to have to say no to others. Right. And so this constant chase of like pandering every single type of potential customer is only going to run your brand or your business into the ground.
Imran, do you have any examples of that to give clarity on?
Yeah, so maybe I'll share like something that I went through, right? Like, so I kind of, a lot of my content was really popular amongst like young Muslims, right? I would say, 17 to 22-year-old Muslims in the US. And it was based out of like 5 or 6 major cities, like the Chicagoland area, DFW, Southern California, New York City, and Florida. And so, early on, I received a lot of advice from people who I consider my peers who were like, oh, you should switch up your content to appear to a larger audience because then you'll get more brand deals, blah, blah, blah. I didn't listen to them, right? Because I was not trying to build up an audience that was just very general. I just wanted to be the go-to person for like, oh, this guy makes content for young Muslims. And by doing that, I was able to gain a lot of like clout internally with a lot of the different like larger Muslim organizations like Launch Good, Islamic Relief, and any of those other kind of orgs by being the guy who only makes Muslim content, right? Because that's like a big part of my identity, and that's kind of what got me into this talk in the first place, right? Whereas some of those peers who advised me otherwise, they may have gotten like the coldest water bottle deal or a deal here or there, but like Lena said, they didn't have a proper niche. And so they couldn't really become an authority. And that applies to everyone.
I think just kind of going off of that too, authenticity has always been able to build real and valuable communities. And that's really what people want at the end of the day. They want to be able to go onto your page. They want to get to gain value from your content, and they also want to know who you are. Brands and influencers are completely different, but for me, as a creator, they want to know who I am, and so showing that while also giving value is a win-win.
Yeah, and I'll piggyback on Imran Lena as well. I think there's 3 principles that will not change with time with using social media. Number 1 is authenticity. An example of this is actually hashtag working in public. So you'll find a lot of people on Twitter be actually building their products publicly, sharing metrics, sharing bugs, sharing like interactions with customers. And it's just like a very transparent view of what's happening in the company behind the scenes. And not only being very engaged with the product, but also become ambassadors of it. The second one is providing value. So regardless of what you use, you would find always the content that provides value to people gets shared and gets a lot of engagement. Like an example of this is when people are interning, you would find people saying, these are the like links to apply for internships, or curating content that people would find valuable. Anything that provides value to people typically does go viral and usually like gets a lot of following. And lastly, is piggybacking off algorithms. So when I was working at Twitter, like behind the scenes, algorithms are not perfect, and there are many ways to fool algorithms. As an end user, you usually do not know how to you usually don't know how to expose these quote unquote weaknesses in algorithms. But if you try to understand the algorithms well enough, you can typically perform better on social media. An example of this, Twitter launched a tool within analytics showing when your audience is most active on Twitter. For me, that's usually Monday and Tuesday, 8 to 10 a.m. PST. So whenever I go and post content at these times, it typically has much more engagement than if I post it at like, I don't know, like 4 a.m. PST or a different time. Another example is Clubhouse as well, like the early movers advantage. People who joined Clubhouse early, the algorithms were giving a big advantage to the active rooms because there weren't that many. So you'd find the active rooms getting a lot of traffic, even if the content itself wasn't of much value.
Thanks for that. Lena, do you guys have any final thoughts, maybe asking each other questions or piggybacking off of that?
I was just really intrigued by both like Lena and Abdellatif talking about just the way that they really visualize their like target customer, target audience. That's something I'm definitely gonna take away from this. That's the first thing I'm doing after this call is figuring out who that is for the brands and everything. Obviously, I do it for brands I work with, but I haven't sat down and done it for myself. So that was like a really good tip that I learned from you guys. So I appreciate both of you for that.
Yeah, I think we have a question from Hassam in the.
For some reason,
a question from Imran and Lena. How to balance being authentic versus posting content that brings in the most engagement? Are those in opposition of other or not necessarily? In my experience, not necessarily. You know, it's so random. For TikTok, it's like the videos that I put in 0 effort always go viral. And, you know, maybe that's because it is the most authentic, you know, so that kind of goes back to authenticity. The most authentic videos go viral. And does it have, you know, is there some sort of balance? Yeah, there is balance. You know, for me, because I'm a creator, you know, I do ads for brands. And so I still, because it's going on my page and not the brand's page, I still want to include a little bit of my brand and what I'm about at the end of the day, while still, you know, showcasing the brand that I like because I'm working with them. Showing authenticity in an ad is very, very difficult, but if you know who your target audience is and you know what your brand is about, it's all about learning that specifically, and then implying that, you know, into an ad or into work that you're doing with a brand. For me personally, but yeah, at the end of the day, you know, it's always the videos that you put no effort in, and it's because it's the most authentic.
Awesome. I also see a question from Rafif. How did you know which market you wanted to target specifically? Was it based on your interests or what you thought would highlight your best feature?
For me personally, this one was pretty easy because I don't take myself very seriously when it comes to posting content online. So it's just like a stream of consciousness, especially with TikTok. And so I kind of let the content find the audience, right? So it's like, what are the things that are most important to me? Technology, my identity as a Muslim, networking with people, and then that reflected itself through the content, and that kind of shaped my target market, right? So I kind of let the content do the talking there, but I didn't actually I didn't pick a market to target specifically. I think it's like a nice overlay of multiple markets that I've hit like that kind of intersection.
Well, that brings us to time. Thank you all so much for doing this panel. I really appreciate it. I learned a lot. I hope you guys learned something too. And hope you all have a great day and enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you, everyone. I learned so much from you all, especially from Imran and Abdellatif. So I'm looking forward to seeing you all again.
All right, thanks everybody.
And enjoy your cruise, Abdellatif.
For joining, and thank you, Sujude, for hosting.
Of course.